Hi, I'm Shannon Malone de Benedictis. Why am I teaching this class, How to Sell Yourself? Well, I've got a little bit of a background that might be helpful in this situation. So I have been a documentary television producer for over 25 years. I've worked on some very small projects like videos for WebMD, some Sesame Studios shorts, etc. But I've also worked on some really big projects, including I won a Primetime Emmy, that's right there, for Secrets of the Whales on Disney Plus for Outstanding Documentary Series. I also won a Daytime Emmy, that's right there, for Penguin Town on Netflix about the jackass penguins in South Africa. So I've seen a lot in my television days. I've worked in development, I was an editor, I was an executive producer, run the full gamut. But here's a little secret. Before I was in television, I was a talent agent. Crazy, right? I got my degree in video and wanted to be a filmmaker, but when I graduated back in the 90s in the first Bush administration, there weren't many jobs in television. So I became a talent agent at a company called Aquin, running a division called Portfolio, which helped people in the creative industries, advertising, marketing, different corporations find jobs. So here I am, 2025, and there's a lot of people looking for work. And I thought, you know what? I want to combine one side of myself, the agent side, with my television side, and give you some advice on how to sell yourself like a TV show. Okay? For the next video, we're going to talk about why it's important. Welcome back. Why is it important to know that all the great elements of a TV pitch are inside you? Well, for one, sometimes we have trouble looking back at ourselves and seeing, hey, we do some really awesome things. Now, many people, if you're like me, Irish, a woman, I've been told not to brag my whole life. So I tend to downplay my successes, downplay my thing. In fact, my husband is my hype man. He tells as many people as possible about the awards I've won and the shows I've produced, where I tend to stay back. So sometimes we don't recognize our own strengths. We don't recognize our own successes. But the other reason for this is that the world has changed. I'm Gen X now for newer generations, and in 2025, it's less about role-based and more about skills-based. And so we need to start shifting our focus to think about how we are skill-wise, what we can promote skill-wise and success-wise rather than the role or title that we have. I've done this for years when I've pitched TV shows, and I'm going to talk about that. That's why this is important. Couple things. One takeaway is, I hope you have a good time. I want this to be fun and engaging and enlightening. Now, I'm sitting here, I have a necklace, I put makeup on, but I'm also just wearing a normal coat that I would normally wear because I want this to feel conversational. This is my office, and you'll see there's a lot of things in my office that reflect who I am and what's important to me. I want that to be a key takeaway from this, is that you had a good time and that you enjoyed learning about what you're really good at and what you're successful at and what you can brag about. The other takeaways from this are going to be looking at your career and looking at the jobs you've done through the lens of successes, through tasks, through things that you've excelled at, not just by the job title you've had. I'm not saying job titles aren't important. They are. But sometimes if you're shifting industries, like in television, many of us are going to have to look at other places and also federal government. It's good to kind of look at successes from a project perspective or from a task perspective. Another takeaway you're going to have is you're going to look at your resume, your cover letter, your interview skills, etc., in a different way. Hopefully in a way that's energetic, positive, and not braggy, but deservedly a success story. Okay. Stay tuned. You're going to find out what you need to bring to the class. Okay, last intro video. First off, I know what you're thinking. If she's a TV professional, why is she talking to a very small camera? Let me tell you why. You don't need a $30,000 camera to learn how you're great. True, you don't. You can use what's ever in front of you, and that's what I want you to do, and I'm doing the same thing. So what you're going to need, you're going to need your resume. You're going to need a cover letter, a sample cover letter. You're going to need your LinkedIn page or anything that kind of gets really much more in depth into your work history. You might also want to tap some friends in between lessons to talk about your work history or talk about things that you've done in the past. Any type of note-taking thing. And then just, the desire to kind of get ready to boost yourself, figure out what you're awesome at, or learn how to speak it or tell it more, how awesome you are, and get ready to have a good time. I really hope you take this class and you come away feeling positive, energetic, and like you've made a new friend who's here and has your back. All right, let's do it. Hey, welcome to class 1. I know you're saying, is she always this enthusiastic? I'm not always this enthusiastic, but like I said, I'm committed to making sure that this doesn't look like a hostage video and that you're having fun. Okay, so class 1, discover your show. What makes you watchable? What makes you a great TV show? And the way we want to go about this is I want to go through the foundational elements of a successful TV pitch and how to apply them to your own personal brand. Personal brand, personal sales pitch, etc. Now, I know some people are like, oh, I don't want to have a personal brand. I'm not an influencer. I understand. If you think about yourself, though, as a product that needs to be sold, as a skill that needs to be sold, which is what you do anytime you go in for an interview or you apply for a job, then in many ways, it's a personal brand. You're not an influencer, but you're trying to influence, if that makes sense. Okay? So let's go through the first topic. Why now is the time to reframe your career story? As I mentioned in the intro, the world has changed dramatically. It really has. And part of that is we've gone from a full-time, you stay at the same place, you've been there forever, to the phrase, a gig economy. Now, not everybody has done that, particularly federal workers or people like me who stay places for a very long time. But what's also shifted in that is less of a role title and more of a skill set, more of a promotional skill set and achievements you've made. I'm Gen X. I started working when I was 15, and in fact, the first long break I took was about 3 years ago. I took a 2-month sabbatical, but I had been working pretty much straight from the time I was 15 till 2 years ago. I'm 54 now. I had always been a roles. I want this title, I want this title, I want this title, I want this title. But what I've seen, the shift, is that the skills that I have and the skills I've acquired in what's going on 40 years of working is that's changing and can apply to many different worlds and many different places. And in reframing your career story, there are many industries out there who are going through downturns. I, for one, am in television. And for people who are not familiar with television, television is on a decline. The estimates are anywhere between 40 to 60% of television professionals are unemployed right now. That is a shocking number, shocking. And it looks like that those jobs aren't coming back. Now, if those jobs aren't coming back, then how do you shift your career story to show that what you're successful in, what you're good at, is applicable to other industries? And that's what this class is about. That's why it's time to reframe your career story. If your industry is struggling, then let's find a way to tell your narrative in a way that's appealing to a lot more industries. If your industry is changing dramatically, like federal workers or contract workers for federal government, let's find a way to reframe your story so it appeals to a broader audience. That's why it's important now. Next segment, we're going to talk about what it is in a pitch, a TV pitch. We're going to get into some pitches I've done in the past. Welcome back. Stand by. So I'm going to break down a pitch, a television pitch. And throughout my career, I have probably heard about, 300, 400 pitches when I worked as a commissioning executive at National Geographic. And then during my time at WAG, Red Rock Films, for the majority of my television career, as well as independently, I have probably pitched 400 ideas. I think that's actually a conservative estimate. That is 400 ideas I have fully developed and brought and tossed out and tried to sell to a buying commissioner. That's not including the 1,000 ideas that never made it past the first review. So I want to get into that kind of first review and how you kind of come about a really good television pitch. And this will make sense for your own career. I want to make that really clear. Think about a television show you really like. Just pick up one. It can be fiction, it can be nonfiction. Just think of something you really, really like. Imagine how they pitched it. Imagine how someone like me pitched it to Netflix, to Disney Plus, to Weather Channel, etc. First thing is, they probably identified the key story points. They identified where the story was going to go, what it was about, etc. They also probably, when they were telling the pitch, they probably went into the key plot twists and unexpected reveals. They thought they had the murderer, but in reality, the murderer was right there helping with the investigation the entire time. Big reveal. That's obviously a true crime one. You highlight the personnel who are going to make the show sing. The director, the producer, the cinematographer, the on-screen talent. If it's fiction, is it Nicole Kidman? Is it Colin Farrell? Most recently, I saw The Resonance on Netflix. That's Shonda Rhimes. That is just boom. That is key personnel who the show is going to be fantastic. And then you talk about the audience. Now, when I say about the audience, when you go in and you pitch a true crime show or you pitch a food show, you're not going to give the same pitch to Investigation Discovery or CNN that you might give to Lifetime. They're different audience bases. They're different viewers there. Lifetime, primarily women, like true crime, they do this. And this is what all these networks know. And if you read the trades, you'll see this. TLC, women, a little bit more over the top, a little bit more sensational. There's an audience for that. There's always been an audience for that. Lifetime is not history. Investigation Discovery is not CNN, etc. So you think about the audience. You think about who's going to be watching it on the other side. When you pitch those materials to those key executives, to the people you're trying to sell it to, you highlight it for them. Now, during my time as a development executive, I've gone into some clients who want full treatments, full scripts, basically a show Bible, 30, 40 pages brought to them of this is everything that's going to happen in the series or the program. And I've gone to some people who want very quick log lines, very quick ad frames of like, this is what it's going to be with incredible pictures that reflect the cinematography. You shape your key pitch materials for those executives. Okay, so that's how you break down a pitch. Story, talent, audience, and materials. For our next segment, we're going to break down a show and why I think this show is actually pitch perfect. I think it's a really good show to look at. Stand by. So let's think about you. What are you about? What are your key skills? And how do those key skills make you a star? Now, when I say what are you about, that's your storyline. And if you're thinking of a storyline, think theme, twist, transformation. My storyline, I led with one of my twists. My twist is, I didn't start in television. I started in a completely different industry. And I use those skills together, being a talent agent for advertising professionals and a show producer, combined, helped me become a show developer. I knew sales, I knew client relations, but I also knew how to put a show together. So it worked really well. There's your hook. There's your transformation, your twist in my personal storyline. So in looking at your key skills, I want you to think about those words and phrases that were used to describe Hometown and how you can find those words and phrases like yourself. I'm going to break down a few jobs and kind of dive into some of the words that are used. So a producer, person who creates something, team leadership, project oversight, big picture. They get to see kind of how everything's going to play out. A researcher or an analyst, they're detail-oriented, they're thorough, they're a great team member, and they're problem solvers. Go find this, crunch this data, figure out what this answer is. I need this report. Problem solving. An associate producer, which in other industries could be a manager level, they're basically support producers and executive producers, etc. They're adaptable, they're goal-driven, they're collaborative, they're project-oriented. They're on a project. They've got to see that project through. They have responsibilities that they have to make sure that they get done and do it right. For development, which is a combination of creative and sales and television. So if you think about it in the corporate world, it could be fundraising, it could be ad sales, it could be just general sales. You're creative, you're analytical. You got to figure out where to go find your next potential client. You have project oversight because you got to nurture that client, or you got to nurture that kind of fundraising goal. Research, problem solving, all those things. So when you think about the jobs you've had and the roles you've had, think also about those key skill sets and those adjectives that are used to describe what you do. Okay, for the next segment, I'm going to talk about the difference between skill and talent. Okay, time for your first exercise. What I'd like you to do is I want you to write down your previous roles, the previous jobs you've been in, and I want you to outline the standout skills that you've demonstrated in that role. And go back 1, 2, 3 jobs. Break down what your tasks were and then highlight the ones that you really, really shine at. What are those key words? Teamwork, talented, dedicated, relatable, deadline driven, problem solver. What are those things in those tasks that you were assigned that you really shine at, you're really good at? You can download some worksheets to help you figure this out, kind of help you break through it. Break through, see what you can find, because, you know, it's self-introspection. And if this is something that you're not seeing yourself, what I want you to do is I want you to find someone, maybe an old coworker or your spouse or someone who can give you insight on what you seem to have excelled at, what you seem to be a standout in. Okay, enjoy, and I'll see you in class 2. Hi, welcome to the worksheets. I just want to give you a quick tour of the worksheets before you dive into the class. These are fillable PDFs, so you can download it, make copies, and use it as many times as you like. Each block you should be able to put your answers in, and the worksheets will progress to have you narrow down and get closer and closer to the things that make you special. If you have any questions about the worksheet, don't hesitate to ping us with a note, but I hope that you find these incredibly helpful. Thanks. Hey everybody, welcome back to class 2. What is your show about? So in this class, we're going to talk about creating a personal log line or personal little sales blurb by identifying your unique strengths, your storytelling style, and your career mission, your career goals. Now, one of the first things I want to talk about is the importance of a hook in your pitch. When I go and I pitch a show, whether it's Secrets of the Whales or Penguin Town, I find a way to put some keywords or phrases in that make it memorable, like Mentos, the fresh maker. I don't know, I have to do it with a Spanish accent. It's just kind of all in our brains. I'm not saying you need to come up with like a Don Draper Mad Men-esque type of thing, but there's a reason why Mentos, the fresh maker, sticks in your head. You remember that. So you find those elements of what's that hook in your pitch. Now, for Secrets of the Whales, it was Whales Have Culture. For Penguin Town, it was the soap opera lives of these jackass penguins. For someone like myself, it could be development executive, likable badass, award-winning producer who delivers results. So for the next part, we're going to go through and talk about your storyline and your key skills. Let's do that. So let's think about you. What are you about? What are your key skills? And how do those key skills make you a star? Now, when I say what are you about, that's your storyline. And if you're thinking of a storyline, think theme, twist, transformation. My storyline, I led with one of my twists. My twist is, I didn't start in television. I started in a completely different industry. And I use those skills together, being a talent agent for advertising professionals and a show producer, combined, helped me become a show developer. I knew sales, I knew client relations, but I also knew how to put a show together. So it worked really well. There's your hook. There's your transformation, your twist in my personal storyline. So in looking at your key skills, I want you to think about those words and phrases that were used to describe hometown and how you can find those words and phrases like yourself. I'm going to break down a few jobs and kind of dive into some of the words that are used. So a producer, person who creates something, team leadership, project oversight, big picture. They get to see kind of how everything's going to play out. A researcher or an analyst, they're detail-oriented, they're thorough, they're a great team member, and they're problem solvers. Go find this, crunch this data, figure out what this answer is. I need this report. Problem solving. An associate producer, which in other industries could be a manager level, they're basically support producers and executive producers, etc. They're adaptable, they're goal-driven, they're collaborative, they're project-oriented. They're on a project. They've got to see that project through. They have responsibilities that they have to make sure that they get done and do it right. For development, which is a combination of creative and sales and television. So if you think about it in the corporate world, it could be fundraising, it could be ad sales, it could be just general sales. You're creative, you're analytical. You got to figure out where to go find your next potential client. You have project oversight because you got to nurture that client, or you got to nurture that kind of fundraising goal. Research, problem solving, all those things. So when you think about the jobs you've had and the roles you've had, think also about those key skill sets and those adjectives that are used to describe what you do. Okay, for the next segment, I'm going to talk about the difference between skill and talent. So skill and talent may seem like the same thing, but it's not. I'm going to give you an example. Okay, so I have sitting here really nice Canon SLR camera. It's not even that nice of a camera. It's a good camera. It does the job at work. I know how to operate it. I know how to take photographs with it. I can go out and, shoot people walking down the street. I know how to operate this camera. Would I say I'm talented? No, I wouldn't. I have the skill, but I'm not going to go and pitch myself as the next cinematographer on the next Secrets of the Whales. That's not me. I'm not going to advertise my abilities to shoot a wedding or to document a fashion show or do headshots. I have the skill, but not the talent. You need to think about the things that you have talent in and promote that. Identify what you have wins in. Is there a project that you've seen to fruition? Was there a roadblock that you faced and you were the person who figured out how to get around it and brought together the team and everybody succeeded? That's talent. Talent is chasing down a lead and finding the lead for the rest of the team. Talent is you're really good at going in and talking to clients and talking them off the ledge. Talent is no project's too big. You will ultimately find a solution and be a huge part of the winning team. That's talent. So learn to differentiate between what you're skilled at and what your talented is. A good way to think about it is Hometown is a really good, fine home renovation show. But the talent they bring to it is they're unique. They work together. They care about their community. There's no conflicts. All those things make it special. Those are special elements. Okay, before we get into the lesson for this class, I'm going to tell you about an animal I think is pretty great. Stand by. During my career, I have been so fortunate to be able to learn about so many fascinating things. There have been incredible cultures, events, history, animals, habitats, you name it. And I get to learn these just incredible facts. I am the boss at pub trivia, just incredibly good at pub trivia. One animal I've gotten the chance to learn about is the platypus. Now, the platypus is only in Australia, and you may have heard of it. It was also a character on a cartoon show. Robin Williams described a platypus early in his stand-up career, God bless his soul. He said, a platypus is an animal that God created when he was stoned. He took a beaver, and took a duck, and he mashed it together. So it has this body of like a beaver otter kind of creature, and then it's got a duck bill. It's really weird looking. Got webbed feet, So it's duck, but a beaver, the whole thing. But that's actually not the coolest thing about a platypus. Not only do the males have poisonous barbs on their hind legs that are toxic, but they're also incredibly bad blank animals. You don't mess with them. So you're looking at this thing and thinking, well, it's a harmless beaver meets a duck. But in reality, it's got all the hubris and moxie of like a lion. So I bring up the platypus because I think that the platypus is a good example to learn and embrace your weirdness, embrace your uniqueness. What makes you unique? Now, use a different animal. You can use an elephant, you can use a unicorn. It doesn't matter. But embrace the thing that makes you special. And that's going to help you find your hook and your talent. Okay, we're going to get into the next assignment. Let's do it. Your assignment for class 2. I want you to put together your promotional blurb. Now, in my business, we call it a log line. Log line is typically, if you guys are older, you might remember the TV guide or the cable guide where it was the little description of what the show is about. And Netflix and Peacock and Disney Plus, it's the little blurb. What's your personal blurb, your personal log line? Use those keywords, use those skills, use those key elements that make you special and sell you. And then I want you to go one step further. I want you to come up with a show title for yourself. What would be a good show title? Is it Game of Thrones marketing division? Is it Law and Order finance? What is a fun show title? And this is more for fun, but I think it's a good way to think about how you want to present yourself, how you want to be seen in a confident, assured, capable way. Now, when I come up with a show pitch, coming up with a title is a huge part of it. I came up with one about looking at mutts and doing a DNA test, and we try to figure out what dogs they are and look at them, and then we get the DNA test and we figure out, oh, were we right or were we wrong? It was called Who's Your Doggy? That's a pretty funny title. That's a pretty good title. Shark shows are all about that, a show title that hooks you. So I want you to take that and apply it to yourself. Come up with your personal logline, your personal blurb, and a show title using TV-style language that's exciting, concise, and clear. Download the worksheets to help you out. All right, let's do it. So let's say you've spent decades in an industry. I personally have been in television for 25 years, working in a variety of roles and jobs. So if I was to write a little quick thing about what my background and experience is, here's an example. Shannon is a development executive and producer of nonfiction programs. She is interested in both media and nonprofit executive opportunities. She excels at leading teams, developing nonfiction ideas, and keeping clients happy. Now, I did bring up nonprofit, but that's a very media-centric bio. But if I want to look at outside into different industries, different places, marketing departments, corporations, advertising agencies, government jobs, etc., I need to think outside my industry. I need to change my language that still highlights what I'm good at, still highlights my key skills, my talents, and shape it in a different way. So let me give you an example of how I've shaped it. Shannon is a problem solver. She can lead teams to award-winning results. Through her likable badass approach, she will bring you success. The word TV doesn't even pop up in there. Problem solving, leadership, award-winning results, likable badass approach, success. It's a lot of the same things. I've just opened it up to many more industries. Okay, for our next segment, we're going to talk about translating jobs into other sectors. Now, as I've mentioned, the majority of my career has been in television and media, both on a network side with 7 years at the Discovery Networks, and then 4 years at National Geographic, and then on the production company side at WAG and at Red Rock Films. So it's been in television media. And the job titles I've had have been editor, a predator, which is producer slash editor, an associate producer, producer, a development manager, development director, and then VP of development, SVP of development and production. So those are very television-oriented things. But when I break down all the different tasks I had in that job, I think about producer, writing, story creation, project oversight, budget management, team leadership. Most of those things are applicable in many other areas. Fundraising, nonprofit management, advertising, marketing. If you're really good with numbers and budget management, you can get into the fiscal side, get into the financial side. Team leadership, there's many different areas you can go into. If you're good at motivating people, you can lead a team of salespeople. Let's look at development executives, so the person who comes up with show ideas. Again, team leadership, writing, pitching, industry analysis, secret thing that a lot of development people do, business promotion, and client meetings. Sales, client management, nurturing donors, so many other opportunities. It's not just about being a producer. It's about being a problem solver. It's about being a leader. And shift your mindset out of being in this silo into a broader range of opportunities. How do you find those new opportunities? I'm going to let you in on another little secret. I'm an introvert. Yep. I'm kind of those weird people who become very extroverted when I need to be. And I'm very extroverted around people I'm very comfortable with, as any of my family members can say at a family reunion. But truth is I don't like happy hours. I hate going to bars. And in general, networking events make me nervous. I get really tongue-tied. Here's the thing about networking. A lot of the roles and positions you're going to get are going to be through people you know. It's true. So that person vouches for that person who vouches for that person. It's the way it goes. Now, there are programs out there that give opportunities and should give opportunities to people who maybe don't have those networking opportunities. My point is this. If you have the opportunity to network not just inside your industry, but outside your industry with other people who might be able to give you a different perspective, jump at it. I belong to 3 separate groups. Wonderful, which is filled with women who love to travel and explore the world. Innovation Women, and Activate Her Awesome. Innovation Women is for public speaking, and Activate Her Awesome is for entrepreneurs over the age of 50. I am the only person from the television industry in these groups. And I am getting so inspired and learning so much, as well as networking outside my own industry. Trust me, if you're in television, they're going to be like, oh my God, you do what? They're going to love it. But there's something about meeting people and talking to people and getting away from behind your screen that helps push you a little bit further and brings you motivation and inspiration. I also highly recommend accountability partners. They can help you identify things that maybe you haven't seen before. They might tell you that you are a problem solver, or you are good at leading, or maybe you need to work on this. I have a few accountability partners. I have one in television. Every Wednesday we message each other. I have one in my entrepreneurial group who we have deadlines and we make sure that we're following them. And I have another one in my public speaking marketing group. Again, we make sure we're pushing things ahead. Use accountability partners to help you broaden your point of view. Look beyond your television world or beyond your little industry and find more opportunities. Okay, we're going to jump into class 3's assignment. Assignment number 3. Let's do it. I know, homework. Did you think you'd have homework? But it's good to have homework. It's good to kind of sit down and go through things. Assignment number 3. So you created a log line and a show title from your previous class. Now I want you to rewrite your log line, your blurb, for 2 other industries. Outside your comfort zone, outside your knowledge base. Tweak it. So maybe it fits for nonprofit, or it fits for healthcare, or it fits for brand marketing. If you're not in television, write one for television. Look at some other ads. Look at job postings. Write your log line for something outside what you're in right now. And then do it again. And then do it again. It's going to help you think about your skills in a much broader way. All right, get ready for class 4. We're going to get into some tools of the trade. Okay, welcome. You're bringing it home. You're doing it. You're mile 20. Let's do it, okay? Name of this class is the tools of the trade, your resume, your cover letter, and credit list. What we want to do is we want to align the key documents when you're applying for jobs and you're working to find a new gig with the log lines you've been creating and the narrative you've now developed, so you feel confident and consistent and really compelling, not just in verbal pitches, but also on the documentation that you're using to talk about your background. So let's first start off with your resume. Resumes, there's an art to them, there's a skill to them, and if you go on LinkedIn, there's many different people who say that you need to kind of shape it this way, shape it that way. If you're this old, you don't need education. If you're that old, you don't need that. I'm just going to give you some key things. When it comes to outlining and graphic and laying it out, I highly recommend that you go and you look at what the latest styles are, or hire a resume designer for you. But here's one thing I really want to make clear. You want to put your best foot forward. You want to put your talents up there, first and foremost. Honestly, if you're 5, 6 years out of college, doesn't matter. Don't put it up front. Doesn't matter. We need to know what your accomplishments are. Other thing is, make it easy to read, everybody. I am 54 years old. I'm lucky that I don't need reading glasses, but I will tell you that the font size is pretty big on what I'm looking at. I'm not saying you need to do 18 point, but dear God, don't put it in a font and an 8 point because nobody can read it. Be concise, be clear, and have a hook. The other thing I want to talk about is the work that you've done. Remember I had you in the very first class break down your accomplishments and the things that you're good at in the roles you've had in the past? You need to put those first and foremost up front. If you are a project manager, bring up a project where you solved a huge problem. If you oversaw something that was a $4 million big deal, put it was a $4 million big deal. If you worked on a hit show or a big project, talk about, I pulled together all the resources and interviews for this Emmy Award-winning program. Highlight your accomplishments. Again, role is one thing, talent is another thing. You want to put that first and foremost. Okay, next part, we're going to talk a little bit more about accomplishments and credits. So when I worked as a talent agent, I would get dozens of resumes every week. And then during my time in production, I would go and look at resumes and look at people's LinkedIn or look at their listings. And I could tell you where they worked and maybe what their role was, but I couldn't tell you what they did. I couldn't tell you what part of the process they were, what they did. When someone's hiring a role, when someone's hiring somebody, they have a problem they're trying to solve. It could be that they're missing support for this department because this department is not hitting their goals or not going through work, getting through the projects fast enough. It could be that they need new leadership because they have a big new project and someone's got to take them on it. It could be that they have a big fundraising goal and they need someone who's going to help them achieve that. So when I'm looking at a resume, I not only want to see your past work history, but I want to see accomplishments listed in your job description that help me solve my problem. Okay? My point being, remember we talked about how you work with clients and a pitch that I would give to one person wouldn't be the same as a pitch to another person. Like I would never give the same pitch to Hallmark that I would give to TLC because I know it's a different audience. It's the same thing with your resume. Make sure that your resume is catered for whom you're talking to. If you've done any type of fundraising, bring that up if you're applying for a fundraising job. If you've led teams in the past or you've solved a huge problem, bring up these accomplishments. Again, remember, the people are trying to solve a problem. Your accomplishments in your roles is part of that. It helps tell that story. It helps answer that question for them. Okay, we're going to get to the cover letter now. Dreaded cover letter. Now, I don't know about you. I hate cover letters because you kind of know what to say and you kind of know who you're talking to and you don't know exactly who you're talking to. And it's really, really kind of frustrating because tonally you want to make sure you get it right. You want to make sure that you're addressing the right person, etc. Okay. Here's the great thing about cover letters and the work that we've done in the past. Basically, your cover letter is your mini pitch. It's where you get to put all the work that you've just done into one beautiful document. Cover letters are typically broken into 4 parts. First is your intro. That's your hook. I'm applying for this job, and this is why you should hire me. It's that unique thing that's going to make people go, you're right, I'm going to remember you. If you want to use kind of a joke, it's your Mentos, the fresh maker for yourself. Your background is your story. Now, don't make it a boring old home renovation show. Your story is unique. What are those unique things in your background, in your story? That's what you need to amplify. The next is your pitch, your talents. What talents do you bring to the table to help them solve their problem? What have you accomplished that bringing you on board is going to be the best decision ever? And then the last part is your closing, is your final push. That's what your cover letter is. It's all these elements we've broken down in the previous 3 classes. You put them all together in your cover letter. Okay, next segment, we're going to get into a little kind of hidden controversial thing. Stand by. Slight hiccup, not the last assignment, but this is keeping it real. See, I'm not making it perfect. It's not like a hostage video or some type of bot just telling you what to do. Remember the assignment I said I want you to write log lines for different industries? I want you to write a new cover letter, and I want it to open with your log line, and I want you to hook the reader immediately. Practice. Do it a couple of times. Download the worksheets. Practice writing your cover letter. Practice tweaking your resume. The more you get into it, the more familiar you become with it, the more confident you're going to become with it. Use the keywords. Use your talents. Use your log line. Okay, we're bringing it home. We're on the stretch. Class 5. Stay tuned. Last class. Good job. This hasn't taken up too much of your time. I have given you assignments and lots of worksheets, and I hope they're helpful, and I hope you've been having fun. So our last class is from pitch to production. We're going to take your story public, right? Because there are 3 elements that go into getting a job. Yes, it's your resume. Yes, it's your cover letter, but it's also the in-person interview when you're face-to-face with your potential client. So I want you to walk away with a strong personal brand strategy. Now, brand strategy. I talked about this in an earlier class. If the idea of having a personal brand or your personal IP kind of goes, it does for me, it does for a lot of people. Think of it this way. You are selling yourself. So how can we best sell you? How can you best sell yourself? So you need to go back to your log line. And I want you to keep playing with it. Keep refining it. Find the way that's the best. Find how you can make it your most confident self. If you're saying something you don't believe in, then it's going to be hard. To give you an example of how to sell yourself like a TV show, is when I would sell a TV show, I would go over in my head over and over and over and over again what would be the best way to immediately pitch this to somebody. Should I highlight the unique thing that we were discovering? What about a dramatic arc? Would it be the talent who I had associated with it? Or would it just be that I was so enthusiastic about it that they would be fools not to buy it? Now, I very rarely did that, but there were some I was incredibly enthusiastic about. Ask Brian Armstrong about that. So really hone your personal brand pitch. Don't be shy about it. Write it up a couple of different ways. Write it up 10 different ways. Expand on it. Build on it. Make it your own. So when someone asks you, what do you do or what are you looking for, you can spout it off immediately. So let's talk about how you can sell yourself confidently and online. This is going to feel abbreviated, this segment, because I could run an entire class on speaking confidently in person and online. There's many, many, many different tricks of the trade. But I'm just going to give you a few from my background and my experience. Number one, keep an ear out for nonsense or useless or additional words you put in your speech. If you say or like or yeah a lot, listen for it. You can train yourself out of using those words. Mine is I say yeah at the end of a lot of statements. And I catch myself. I gotta stop doing that. I can't believe I'm doing it again. Practice. Practice when you're out with friends. Practice when you're with family. Practice. You can train yourself to stop adding these words. And when you take these words out of what you're saying, it makes you sound more confident. Another part is, and this is especially to women out there, is uptalk. Uptalk is when you go up at the end of a sentence. Now, studies have shown that women have done this because it was a way to stop men from interrupting them. So if they ended with a question at the end, people would be like, are they still talking? So it was a cultural adaptation for women to actually get what they want to say out. You will sound a lot more confident and certain of yourself if you don't uptalk. And my last tidbit, my last advice, is when you say something and you want to sell something or you're speaking about your skills, avoid but. I joke with friends of mine who do sales that once the person says, great, you zip it. You stop. And sometimes we get nervous when we talk about ourselves. I'm a really good salesperson. But there have been times, nope, stop. Stop yourself. It's okay. I highly recommend, and not to make this too current, but watch the new series on Netflix, The Residents, because the lead character, Cordelia Cupp, uses silence brilliantly. No buts. Don't have it in there. No apologies. Make a statement and stand by it. I recommend you go on LinkedIn and other places to find resources to help you with this if this is something you struggle with, and work with people who can help you, coach you through some issues or concerns you may have. But those 3 skills, they will help you enormously in anything that you're doing, either online through Zoom or Gmeet or etc., or an in-person interview. Okay, stand by. We're going to get into LinkedIn and some other platforms. LinkedIn, social media, TikTok, Instagram, all those things. LinkedIn is a place to advertise your talents. Almost every company is going to do a search. Use it as a billboard to promote yourself. It can be really positive and give a really good indicator, as well as you can meet other people through LinkedIn. If you don't want to go online, then find other networking groups and people you can connect with. But that is a huge part of people feeling comfortable working with you, is referrals and looking and connecting with other people. Work with experts who can help you refine your LinkedIn profile. I've worked with experts, people who've gone in and said, this is what you need to do. Find them. Short form video content shows that you know how to put together a sentence and you don't have 3 heads. It's good. It's good to have those things. There's also programs and companies out there that help you create promo videos of yourself to show how you can pitch yourself. And at the end of this class, I'm going to give you a resource of some people that I recommend. Okay, we're going to go into the final part and then the assignment, your final assignment. Stand by. Putting all of this together, everybody, find help. Career coaches, resume help, video help, LinkedIn modifications, website modifications, something to promote yourself. There are other people who can look at you and say, you are fantastic, and tell you where you can amplify your talents, your skills, your background, everything. How do you sell yourself like a TV show? Sometimes it's not by yourself. You use others around you. Do that. Tap into the people around you. Find them. Let them help you. So look, your final assignment is I want you to practice sharing your log line out loud. In writing, different places. Go to a small group. Talk to friends. Say, hey, this is how I'm pitching myself. Get feedback and practice. Practice doing it. Practice selling yourself. It can be to your dog. See if your dog responds. Would you respond? My dog's asleep over to the side. My point is, the more you practice, the more you do this work, the more you dive in, the more confident you'll be. And that's what's most important. When I went in to pitch a show, I was confident. I had to convince the network executive that it was worth them spending millions of dollars on my idea. The only way I accomplished that was by being confident, knowing the story, knowing the skills and the key things behind it, the skills I could bring, and why it would be beneficial to them. It's the same thing when you sell yourself. It's the same idea. You can do it. You are a hit TV show. Go for it. Thank you so much for attending How to Sell Yourself Like a TV Show. I hope you enjoyed the class, and I hope you had lots of takeaways and feel more confident about selling yourself and the skill sets that you have. I am available for consultations through my website, padlincreative.com. That's Padlin creative.com. I'm also available for any type of oversight, creative consultation, project consultation, production, etc. I wish you all the best, and please return and look for future classes. Thank you. Bye-bye.